Salutations, respected viewers. This video is about Mr. Ojeda, or perhaps I should call him Senator Ojeda, who's someone I found out about quite recently, and I'm deeply impressed by him. Well, who is he? He is a politician in West Virginia. He's a Democrat, and he's identifiably blue-collar. And his working class roots may be a major political advantage for him. So what so attracts me to him is just how genuine he is. And in that sense, he seems to be the polar opposite of Trump. I don't think, well, the man doesn't come across as being dishonest at all. I don't think anyone could accuse him of deceiving the public. So he joined the military as soon as he was able. He served for over 20 years in the US Army. He rose to be a major. If I've got this right, he was promoted from the ranks. He didn't go to West Point at 18. And he served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and so forth. Came back to civilian life, and on the GI Bill was able to access tertiary education. So he's a very affable and decent sort of person. So he's walked the walk, he's talked the talk, and now he's very dispirited to see in his home state the parlous condition of schools and so forth, and how bad the opioid crisis has got, and that hard-working people can't afford access to healthcare, and repealing the Affordable Healthcare Act and Patient Protection Act has had a ruinous effect on many proletarian communities. So he cares about schools, healthcare, labor unions, as people call them in the United States, the elderly. He's trying to help his fellow citizens. And that's something that Republicans seem to hold in contempt. They really only care about plutocracy. And although Mr. Ojeda is personally pro-life, he thinks that outlawing abortion would disproportionately impact the neediest, I suppose, poorest people who can't afford contraception in the first place. So there we are. He comes across as being completely decent, honourable. There's no question about his gallantry. However, his opponent, a Republican incompetent, she had the gall to cast aspersions on his military service and his patriotism. And as I say, his valour is beyond question. So he's deeply impressive, and he's really caught the public imagination. His name is spreading quite rapidly, almost like wildfire. So he may soon be a household name. It'd be splendid to see him take on Trump in the next presidential election. Here is someone who's the real deal, who's absolutely genuine, who's got roots in an ordinary community, and who cares about people, and who really has served his country, is not a liar, is not a charlatan, is not an egotist, is not always blowing his own trumpet. And there he is. You can't call him namby-pamby or an ivory tower intellectual or anything like that, who's straight-talking, a very ordinary guy who's wandered into politics and happened to turn left, not far left by any means. So a thoroughly respectable and admirable person. So I hope he goes very far. I would dearly like to see him win his seat in the US Senate, not just be a state politician, be a politician at a federal level. Obviously, the Democratic Party needs a lot more like him, not just Ivy League people. Obviously, they have their role, and not just people who are lawyers, and they're probably the single largest profession in US politics. So there's a lot to be said for this guy. He worked in US schools. He saw how ordinary schools were terribly underfunded, and the lack of resources had a very deleterious effect on the education of teenagers, and he was striving to do his level best to help them. And he has a sense of service. He is motivated by duty, and the contrast with Trump could scarcely be greater. Trump is about as far from public service as it is possible to be, is entirely about himself and more money for me. It's just flagrant. And obviously Ojeda, he takes no prisoners with this kind of thing. He is calling out people who are really just bought politicians, who are spokesmen for Big Pharma and so forth. That's why Richard Ojeda is just incensed by the flagrant hypocrisy, by the legalized corruption that is the lobbying system. So he's really a breath of fresh air, plain speaking, and he'll probably go far. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see him take the White House? Okay, perhaps it's high time that there was another ethnic minority president, or indeed a woman as president, but if he at least had someone from one of those groups as his running mate, that would be a very welcome change.